Through a phone I can't hear your tone. Oh, you're with her and now I'm left alone. Guess I'm hung up on you, yeah. 'Cause in us I've got hope, and I want you to know. You said I'd always be your superstar, even though it's too soon. I wore your sweater in my hospital room, yeah. Guess I got the love flu. Hope that's a door you to walk through. And we don't sing the same tune. Far apart, I'm self-destructive, delusional, too convinced that for me you would drop that avoidant act too. Guess I still got hope, and I want you to know. It's a childish weird. Time, but you do the same now that you're occupied. You know the way to sneak into my life. It is always when I want you out of my sight. I no longer got hope, and I want you to know. No more. You said I'd always be your superstar.
Welcome to the Black House. We're here today with our guest, TSENATE'S.
Hi.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, TSENATE'S. And also we have Octavius Jones from the Black House team, who's going to be helping us out. I think I'd like to just start first by tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am 17.
Wow.
I'm from Ethiopia, and my parents immigrated here in, I think, 2000, I believe. And I was born here, and I've been doing music for a few years now, and I'm really excited to be on your radio.
Yeah, so going along that too with your introduction into music. So do you come from a musical family, or how did you start your musical journey?
So my mom isn't really into music, but my dad's really into music, and he plays a lot of Ethiopian jazz and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
like Bob Marley, and that kind of was always playing in the house, and a lot of like Ethiopian Orthodox Christian music and that kind of thing was always playing in the house. And then I kind of just branched out into like Rihanna and all of the OG early 2000s music. And then I feel like I just took all those inspirations and started writing my own stuff.
Right. Because, like one of the questions that I had was your sound, about your sound. And you're saying early 2000s, and then the comparison was like the blending of jazz and funk a little bit. But what I was hearing, because I was listening to your music today, and I've listened to it before, and we've played it on the show, but what I was hearing today was really early 90s. You know, like, and I was thinking, who does she sound like? And and you know, there's no app on the internet that says, does this singer sound like? So I was going, and I actually find you sound like an early Maya. Has anybody ever made that comparison to you?
Yeah, I think I've heard it a few times, but
Right.
yeah, no, I get the early like 90s vibe as well from a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like trying to go, who does this girl sound like? And even the way you, you know, visually present yourself, I was thinking this is like early Maya, maybe even Jade, but this is going back to the right, you know, the early days of R&B. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting that you've also had those comparisons as well. In the lyrics, you're talking about as a performer, they were cheering you on as a performer. Have you found how you approach relationships, both romantically and platonically, have changed since you've begun creating music and performing?
I do think they have changed. Romantically, I think it's changed in the sense that sometimes I feel like when I'm writing in the mood to write music and stuff, I feel like I can be quite dramatic and like a bit like I guess like sometimes I can be like, oh, I'm just going along with the full plot and like this will
Mm,
be a great song. Like and I feel like that's one side of me that I feel like I've discovered since starting to write music in my romantic relationships. But I also feel like writing music has made my romantic relationships more stable in the sense that I can, if I'm feeling some type of way, instead of um, projecting, I can just sit with my thoughts and write it out rather than being immediately like reactive. So
And that's a beautiful way of talking about, the writing process and what it means to date, for the people who are dating you, to date an artist. Because I know we've heard the opposite side for, like the Taylor Swift, where be careful of dating someone who's a musician because your relationship will end up in one of their songs.
yeah.
yeah, I won't lie. I have had people say something along the lines of, I'm like scared you're gonna write a song about me, which is like it's bound to happen. But
Yeah, and if they act good, right, or if they treat you right, then there shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah,
yeah, like
exactly.
Taylor Swift said, she said something along the lines of, if guys didn't do bad things, then I wouldn't write like bad songs about them. So I guess that's something I live by.
Do you find as a young artist as well, this focus, well, do you find that people who are older in the industry, are you navigating them respecting your art? And especially older people too, who even are as your audience, who may say like, well, you're so young in terms of your relationships and how you're talking about love. What do you have to say about this subject?
I feel like people do sometimes look at me as young and naive, and I feel like that can be quite discouraging. But I do understand where they're coming from in the sense that they have experienced more things and they have experienced romantic relationships on a larger scale. But I feel like in saying that, it does sometimes invalidate the feelings that I am experiencing as a teenager and as someone that's going through these like really hard times that for someone that's older and has already been through that 100 times might feel like the easiest thing. But for me, it's like the biggest deal in my life right now. And it's like, one of the only things I can like focus on or like I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. And I just want to tell you to live in that. Don't listen to those people because even when we talk about like, early 90s R&B, we relate to that because I was young and Maya and those individuals were young too. And we were talking about, what love, what relationships, what our dreams were at that age. And a lot of the music industry is built on, well, a lot of the more popular as across ages and genres. But there is a space and a beautiful space for young people to come in and say, you have a voice too. What you think about and what you're experiencing matters as well. So I really appreciate that you are doing that for young people who are your age, who are going through the same things you're going through now. And I think, yeah, your music really translates and even connects to someone like myself who's 35, a little bit older than you. It still touches me as well. Not just my youthful side, but the parts of myself that I want to keep. optimistic, about relationships and love, but then also tell the truth too about heartbreak and heartache and, how
Yeah.
dramatic that can be. And I can be in relationships too.
You mentioned that Superstar was originally a diary entry. And so how was that process of translating the entry to music? And do you approach journaling or diaries with music in your mind?
So I journal a lot, and sometimes I go into it with the intention of I want to just write a bunch of words that I can then use to write a song or like use for a melody. But sometimes I'll just be journaling about literally anything. But in this case, I was just journaling about all the things that were bothering me at that time, and there seemed to be a pattern of the same issue. And I kind of just collected all of my thoughts and started writing a bunch of lines that like rhymed and try to find like my vibe, and then I worked with my producer to make that come to life.
Yeah, I want to ask you too, because your producer's Mazbou Q.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that working with him? Because he's just amazing at what he does.
He's an absolute legend. Like, it was so cool. I was really nervous when I first came into it because he's like really well established, and when I came in, he made me feel super comfortable, and like it was really easy to express what I wanted to hear, and he knew exactly what I meant when I was saying like, oh, I like this song by this artist, and I like the bass line in this, and then he like was so quick to like put it all together and make it sound exactly how I wanted it to sound, and that was really cool.
Do you have a plan to keep working with Mazbou on other tracks in the future?
I would love to work with him on my other tracks, yeah, for
And
sure.
can you tell us about the music video for Superstar? Like, how did you tie the visuals to the story, the narrative that you wanted to communicate?
So I kind of wanted to communicate this idea of despite being in like the lonelier times, I had like my friends and family being there to support me, even if they didn't really know exactly what was going on. It was like their presence just uplifted me, and they were kind of like my light. And I kind of just showed that through those scenes with the braiding and the hair styling scenes. And then there's the scenes where I'm like backstage on my own, which kind of reflects the idea of like being on your own and isolated and like feeling like no one's really around. But then obviously you do have your friends and your whānau.
Looking at your bio too, you're not only invested in and interested in music and the creation of music, but you also are engaged in film and theater. Can you talk to some of either of those experiences you've had in the past, or how you want you to develop as an artist in those fields?
Yeah, so I have been doing musical theater for a few years now, and it's like my favorite thing to do. I love to do it. The last musical I did was Elf the Musical, and it was so much fun.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really cool, and it was a great way to wrap up last year, and the Christmas vibes it was great. But I really love performing on the stage, and I feel like it really reflects in the way I perform when I'm performing R&B or other styles.
What are some of your favorite musicals?
One of my favorite musicals is Aladdin. I saw it when they came to the Civic a few years back. It was great. And I went and saw Hadestown on Broadway. So that was great. And seeing that on Broadway was literally amazing. Yeah.
It's Hadestown.
Hadestown. It's, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like,
I know. I was like, I don't know if you can. It's like,
it's a really complex storyline, but it's about like two like opposing, I'd say like villages or like tribes kind of, and like there's like the typical love story where like they're forbidden lovers, and like
you get a lot of time doing musical theater. Like, do you still do it right now? I'm assuming.
I'm not doing like it right now because the season hasn't started, but last year I did 3 shows, so yeah, I do it quite often.
Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing, because you don't often meet people that are actually doing R&B and hip hop and also doing music. I mean, I know there was Hamilton, but it's like a first.
Yeah.
Unless you sort of tag on the whiz, and I guess that was kind of poppy, but usually musical theater and those genres don't go together. So do you get asked a lot by other people in the music industry that you're around with in Auckland about doing musical theater from other artists? I mean,
other artists, I haven't really been asked about it that much because I guess like a lot of artists are kind of only doing their own thing. But I usually get questions from my musical theatre friends and like people that I'm working with on musicals, like what it's like doing more R&B work and stuff, because they usually do like classical or like that other contemporary music. But yeah.
In terms of stamina, like that is one of
Yeah.
the things too, how to save your voice, you know, how to project it correctly. So have you seen any translation between that, the skill set of learning and growing your voice and the ability to utilize your body and your voice and take care of that voice for, you know, your career as a performer in festivals and these, you know, different weather conditions and around different people too now?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's like you said, stamina is a big one because like you're doing full out choreography while singing solos and like you have all the responsibility and you can't let anyone else down. So I feel like you have to really get really fit and stuff for that. And I also feel like my voice has trained to have a bit of breath work now because of that. And I know how to like look after my voice, because when you're doing a musical, it's not just one night. Like when you're doing a gig, like a single gig, it's like you have to be on your game for the like next week and a half or like however long the show is running.
Yeah, I had a brief experience in musical theatre when I was a young warthog, and basically, the throat stuff, because I'm one of those people that lose my voice a lot, and it was looking after your voice, looking after your voice while you're doing that 5-day week of shows. That was really challenging. Yeah, but great training ground. Do you think it's a great training ground for everything else?
For sure, I would totally recommend it, like to anyone getting into singing. Like if you are doing any R&B, pop, if you can try get into any theater, even if it's not like being in a theater company, just like working on theater songs in itself, it makes your voice so much more powerful.
Have you been doing live shows performing your R&B work around Auckland? And do you have any plans to kind of like tour around a bit when you've got a bit more of a body of work?
Yeah, so I played Breaking Sound in May last year, and that was my first and like most recent gig that I've had with my own music. That was so much fun. It was cool because it was a very different group of people coming to watch, because it was in like a bar kind of setting, so it wasn't really people my age, but it was great like having an older demographic come and watch. I think that was really cool, and everyone was super supportive and it was a great vibe. And I'd love to go tour after I have built a bigger discography. Yeah,
I'm American and I'm actually from California. So one thing that I noted, and even I had aspirations as a young person to be in music or to be in the arts, but this balance too between arts and education. And so I felt like I had to go the route of education and invest in going to university and, you know, pursuing that. But for some of my other friends and some of the more famous people who, you know, took their talents as a young person and went straight into the industry, now, you know, they're in their 30s with me as well. And they talk about, on both sides, the sacrifices you make in pursuing one or the other. And for those individuals trying to do both. So for you in the future that you want to create, do you feel like you do want to, yes, music is a part of who you are and what you want to pursue, but you have all these other pursuits that you want to invest in? And how you think about balancing that?
Yeah, so I just started studying this year. So
Oh, congrats.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's one thing that has been like constantly on my mind. Like, is this like worth it? I guess like studying as well as doing music, or just like if I just fully sacrifice it and just go full deep into the music scene. But I enjoy learning. That's the thing, is I really do enjoy learning, and I enjoy learning about things that matter to me. Like I'm studying politics, and I find that really interesting. So yeah, I have like really been thinking about the whole leaving schooling and stuff to like fully devote my time to music. But I think I'll just like see how things go for the year and make a decision later on.
So whatever you decide, that's your journey, and don't let other people try to dissuade you.
For sure.
Because yeah, because one thing too that I have been thinking about and looking at is people like SZA and Summer Walker and even Adele. So a lot of younger, particularly women, who they were like, "Oh, we love you. We want you on tour all year round, and produce songs like every few months." The strain on their voice, and a lot of younger singers have had to do vocal surgeries now, because they are being and working so hard because the industry demands it. You have to be out there, you have to be seen.
Yeah.
And they often tell you too, as an artist, immediacy. People like you now, the hype is up, so you have to capitalize on that. But the reality for me too is like, what happened to the age of, the Aretha Franklins and the Anita Bakers, and being able to sing into your 60s and your 70s and believing that, your looks and your beauty, and your youth are, great things, but they're not the only things that you have. So I tell you, you have all this now, and you will have a great career, but there is no there is a long-term goal that you can work towards as well. And take your time, discover yourself, experiment as you want to. Because especially for Black artists, I'm really invested in making sure that the journey that you go on, it not only pleases us and helps us and fulfills us as we you do your music, but I want you as an artist to have a good time, being an artist too. That's a part of the journey as well. So I hope you're investing in that too, having as much fun as possible right now.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, because I feel like people do put a huge emphasis on like the hype or like your youth and stuff, and like I do agree with what you've said. Yeah, so I appreciate hearing that.
Yeah.
And I know that the music industry in New Zealand is not as big as it is in Australia, which isn't as big as America, right? And a lot of artists feel like they need to go to Australia to actually make it, or that's the jump off point. Do you have plans of like expanding into the Aussie market and further, or is your focus more New Zealand and then global? Like, what's your sort of plan?
So my demographic at the moment has been like, my top country is Australia, so that's pretty interesting. So I have been thinking about the Australian music industry quite a bit as of recent, because I do see that most people that listen to my music are from Australia, like places like Sydney, Melbourne, and I think they have a lot of opportunity for young Black people there as well. So, but I do love being here as well. So I'm still really young, so it's hard to like know what the right thing to do is and like when the right timing is. But I feel like I'm just trying to let time, what's the saying, like let time tell or something.
I know when you go into those bigger markets, it's the people that you have around you. Just watching what my son's experiences have been, and it's the people that you have around you that either make that journey a good one or a difficult one, if you know what I mean. And so like, if like you're obviously under management, would that be something that you would do as a group? Like your management would organize those connections, because that support when you move away from a place like New Zealand is really important. And actually, when I think about it, it's really quite interesting watching the collaborations that are happening between Afro-Kiwi artists and Afro-Australian artists. I think it was actually my youngest son that switched me on to your music. He was listening to it. Yeah. So I think that's how you ended up on one of our playlists, because he mentioned, oh, have you heard about this girl here? Is that something that, you with your management are working on together before actually taking that leap?
Yeah, I think it's really important to build those like networks and that foundation before making such a big jump like that. And I think that's something that takes time and takes a lot of energy. So I think that is definitely something that we're working on at the moment.
Are there any dream collaborations that you would love to do in the future? As we manifest, let's put it out in the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so for girl artists. I would say obviously SZA.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
one of the first covers I did back in 2018 was a SZA song. It was Broken Clock. So I yeah, I would love to work with SZA. I'd also love to work with Cleo Soul, Lauryn Hill. Who else? I love Summer Walker, Janae Aiko, all of those like R&B girls at the moment. They're all killing it. Yeah. And for guys, I really like Steve Lacy. I love Daniel Caesar's work. Who else? I love Tyler, the creator's work. The work he does with Kali Uchis is really cool, and that vibe is something that I would love to make at one point in my life.
For a few of the artists that you mentioned, it's not only their voices that have made them popular or connected them with their audiences, but it's their aesthetic, like like the way they dress, their music videos, the art and things that they're interested in as well. How much of your aesthetic do you also put in your music, in your music videos, or in how you connect with your artists, your audience as an artist?
I would say that my aesthetic plays a big role in the type of music I make and the type of artistry that comes with my music. So like the creative side of it all, like my music video is very much my aesthetic, the colors. I love the whole like disco look. And I would say, like you said, like SZA's vibe and everything plays such a big role in her, how big her fan base is and how connected they are. And I think that that's like the new shift in music, and that's become one of the most important things in like the promotion side of things. Yeah.
And one thing too, for artists, it's not just a focus on who you work with and how they help you to shape your sound, but then having more autonomy over your own voice. So have you thought about, or would you be interested in directing your own music videos and producing and learning how to produce as well as part of your process or your growth as an artist?
Yeah, I love the behind the scenes work as well, and I would love to be able to direct not only my own stuff but like someone else's videos. That would be really cool. And I really enjoy like coming up with concepts and stuff for music videos, or like themes for PR stuff and that kind of thing. So I think that is definitely something that I would be interested in learning.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to see.
You mentioned about dream collaborations with international artists.
Mm.
What would be collaborations you'd like to do with Afro-Kiwi artists right here? Because I'm a big Afro-Kiwi music fan. Who would you be, let's big up some of our Afro-Kiwi artists. Like, who would you be keen to work with in New Zealand? From New Zealand, that's actually here right now.
I really like Jess B's music. It's really cool. Yeah. I've been really looking into her stuff, and she's got such cool work, and her like entrance in the rap scene for like a woman to be that big in New Zealand is just so cool to see. So I love her work. Yeah.
And anybody else?
I don't listen to that many male artists if I'm being honest. So I am more, I like feminine sounding voices. So
Me too. So there's nothing wrong with that. I do too.
yeah, so I can't think of anyone at the moment, but I'm sure people, I'm sure I can think of other people later on.
Yeah.
I'm
And they'll
actually
come find you
thinking,
too. So.
I'm actually thinking Chai Nonso and his
Oh yeah,
R&B sound. I was thinking like you guys together would be, you could make that classic R&B sort of duet together.
Yeah. His he had a release party recently, and his work was amazing. Like I heard his stuff over Instagram, and it was great. So I would love to work with him. Thank you for bringing that up.
With other people in the the creation process. So I want to ask you something along those lines as well about, for you in creating and crafting a song, is there a particular time of the day where you feel like, okay, I'm inspired now, and are you the kind of artist too who you like to be spontaneous and not dwell so much on getting everything perfect, you want to just get it out there, or do you let things ruminate and like develop first and then you bring it out into the world?
I would say I'm quite a perfectionist, so I don't think I could ever just release a song just like out of nowhere. I think I like to work on a schedule, so I think that would be really hard for me. But I wish I was more spontaneous in that sense. But for music writing and creativity, I think I'm most creative at night when it comes to writing music. I guess like when you're on your own at night, I feel like you get in your thoughts and you're very isolated at times. So I feel like that brings me to a very vulnerable state, and that produces the best kind of art. But in terms of finding things that I like, I think I do that during the day when I'm just scrolling through Spotify or looking through playlists and that kind of thing.
I like that because
Yeah.
myself and a few other artists do the same thing where you download during the day and then you upload, at night, or like it, because that the nighttime is, historically a famous time for artists.
Yeah.
The world is quieted down, so then you can explore. So I like that too.
Mm. I was thinking about like what you're planning on studying, which is politics.
Yeah.
And, a lot of R&B artists were more, talking about feelings and emotions and stuff. But then hip hop kind of was quite almost from the beginning was about making either political statements or observations. The comedians, same thing. Do you think that what you're studying, because I think the arts and music go so well together. I know if I was writing music, I would probably be writing about observations that I've made or something like that. Do you think that what you're planning to study will also be influential in what you write about? Or would you avoid that completely? Is that sort of like not an area you'd want your music to touch?
I think that when I'm sitting in the politics lecture, I feel like I get really worked up and frustrated at the world. And I guess that's the same emotion you kind of feel when you're frustrated about other aspects in your life. And I guess that I bring that element into my music. But in terms of like strictly political music, I haven't really dived deep into that side of things. But I do like when artists use metaphorical things to speak on political movements, like when Solange like speaks like her song "Don't Touch My Hair." It's like, although you might off the bat you wouldn't think it's a political song, like it can be through the political lens. So I like that kind of metaphorical creative side of it.
Do you ever look at you said that you're influenced a little bit with the Ethiopian music and stuff like that. Do you ever think about it in terms, and what is the way that that Ethiopian people express those kind of ideas in their music?
A lot of like Ethiopian jazz and like Ethiopian instrumental music was actually part of a political movement where a lot of Ethiopian artists weren't allowed to. It was kind of like illegal to speak on political things through music, and just to speak on it in general. It was very like criticized and it was very deemed upon. So I think that whole movement where people weren't allowed to write their music with that political intention, and that's produced all of this really cool jazz music. So even though it's kind of the reverse effect of like what artists have done over in the States or in South Africa and stuff, where it's not directly addressing political aspects of what's happening in the country, but it was I guess like a result of what was happening in the country. So people weren't able to speak on what was going on. And I guess it kind of is like the fact that it's instrumental is kind of like a metaphor for the silencing of their voices, because you genuinely can't hear their voices. So I guess that's kind of a way that people have been quite political in the Ethiopian music scene.
And American jazz is the same way too. So, we do focus on hip hop, but go back further into our musical catalog, and it's the same thing too. That they were using, instruments, the horns, the saxophone, breaking away from classical traditions, making noise. As some people, as called it, but it was
Mm.
that it was a protest against those systems, against, and to say we're angry, we're frustrated. The music is reflecting how we feel, reflecting their hearts. And one thing too, that I love in my own examination of the history of music in the African diaspora is how much we do collaborate and talk across our cultures, our countries. And Ethiopian jazz, I came to it in my undergrad years in college when I was looking at what were the influences of the people of my times in the 90s and early 2000s. What were they listening to get the sounds like Mos Def and Common and others? They were listening to Ethiopian jazz. So
Yeah.
there is synergy between, we're all listening and hearing and helping each other in our creative expressions, because oftentimes we're dealing with a lot of the same issues. One big issue that is affecting us, particularly here in New Zealand, and maybe you living in Auckland, is did the cyclone affect you in any way, and how have you and your family been, in the aftermath of all these weather events that have been happening in the north?
Yeah, so I'm really grateful nothing really happened to my family. I mean, a few of my cousins and aunties and stuff dealt with a bit of flooding in their houses and stuff, but my immediate family didn't, which is we're really lucky. But yeah, it was a really hard time for the whole community, and I feel like it not only made everyone really sad, but it also it pushed back a lot of people's timelines and pushed back a lot of people's scheduling and made working a lot harder for a lot of people. So yeah, I feel for those that have been affected by the cyclone.
Are they getting the support they need now?
Yeah, I think that there is quite a few charities and relief funds. I was volunteering at my friend, her parents own a moving company, and they had a relief fund, and pretty much the entire community had donated and was working there and volunteering, and it was great to see everyone together during such a hard time. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure where everything is in terms of funding, but I do know that a lot of donating is happening at the moment.
Love to see a charity event put on by a whole lot of Afro-Kiwi artists in Auckland to help families that may be struggling in Auckland right now. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that would be beautiful. My music teacher, she's not African, she's Māori, but she did have a little gig the other week for the relief fund. So she did donate all that money too.
About that as well. So we all live here in Aotearoa, and so there are, Indigenous people here as well. So what has, growing up here, what's your relationship been with the Maori community, and what influences, if any, have they had on your artistry, or just being a part of your life as well?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very Pākehā community, but obviously there was a lot of Māori families around and stuff, and it was really cool working with my vocal coach. She has really introduced me to so many Māori artists and other Indigenous work that has really influenced my new stuff that I'm writing, and just being in her presence and having her perspective has really helped me just learn a whole new lot of things and see how the music industry can improve for those Indigenous artists as well, and how we need to push those Indigenous artists further because their music isn't really being recognized. So I grew up in Devonport, Takapuna. So I don't know if you guys know what that is,
Yes.
but it's as Pākehā as you can get.
That's why I'm always shocked when I hear that there are African people on the North Shore. I'm like, since when did that happen?
Yeah, so growing up on the shore, I went to pretty much all Pākehā schools. I mean, there was a few, there was a bit of an Asian community as well, but there was no black kids. I think there was 2 other black girls at my school and maybe 1 other black guy. So yeah, it was a very small community, and I didn't have any black people in my year group or anything growing up. So that was really challenging, and that was really hard, especially because whenever I went to church or I went to places over the bridge where there's a larger Ethiopian community, I felt kind of left out because I didn't really get to, I don't know, indulge in that side of my culture and be around people that are my age that aren't in my family, because obviously I have heaps of cousins and stuff, and that was great, but it's also nice to meet people that are from your country, that are your age, and are into the same things as you.
And I felt like even my own artistry and my poetry, I'm a PhD student, so my writing has been and has called out for that, for connection, for being in community of like-minded, and to see what that's like. So I went and lived a few years on the continent of Africa in different countries. Do you think that you would go back and live in Ethiopia, or do you go to visit Ethiopia regularly as a family?
We don't go regularly because it is really expensive
I
flights.
know.
Yeah, and there is currently a war going on, so I haven't been back. I last time I went was, I think, 2015, so I haven't been in a while, but I really hope to go soon. But yeah, I don't know if I would live in Ethiopia long term, but when we go for like 3 months. So it kind of feels like you're living there, but I don't know if I could live there full time. Maybe like for a year,
Yeah.
maybe. Also, I don't know if I could live there full time.
And you don't have to. I don't like that when people make you like say, "Oh, you got to stay here." I'm like, no, I like to travel. So, is there anything that we didn't ask you, or that you want to communicate to the audience, or that you want to get out there? Please, like, let us know.
I'd like to thank Youth Arts New Zealand and the Auckland Council for funding my last project. I couldn't have done it without them, and that was a huge like step in my career. And Superstar's almost at 10K streams, so
Wow.
yeah, so I'm
Well
still
done.
yeah, and getting playlisted by like Spotify was pretty cool. So and like everyone else and all the other platforms and everyone in the music industry that's been supporting me through my journey. I really appreciate everyone that's listening to my stuff.
And we'd like to thank you for taking the time out to come on our show, our podcast. It's been really nice talking to you this afternoon. And I wish you all the best
Thank
in
you.
your future career and working with your management and, collaborating and creating and your musical theatre as well. I do kind of like musical theatre in a kind of a way. So, yeah. And so thank you for coming on The Blackhouse.
Thank you so much for having me. This was my first interview, so I'm so happy and I'm so blessed to be able to have had this interaction with you guys. It was great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're blessed to get to know you, and
yeah.
yeah, can't wait
Yeah.
to continue to support you in your years and all your efforts.
Thank you so much.